So, is Disney too expensive? Are they only catering to the rich and cutting out everybody else? Shouldn't Disney lower prices to go to Walt Disney World? Well, we're going to talk about that. So, Disney World and a family vacation is expensive. And a lot of people feel that it's too expensive. They can't afford it. Their families don't have that kind of money. And it's become very apparent that Walt Disney World doesn't care that most people can't go to the parks anymore or take a family vacation. They should lower the prices so that everybody can go to the parks and enjoy it. Right? At least this is what I hear a lot of people say and tell me. Very simply, Disney World has priced themselves out of range for most families and most people, and they've limited the number of people who can now go on a Walt Disney World vacation and blocked out most people. This is shown by their constantly raising prices, how expensive the food is, how expensive it is at the gate, the fact that they're constantly building more Disney Vacation Club resort rooms and more Disney hotels so that you have to get locked into their expensive property. And look how much it is to go to Walt Disney World now. A one-day ticket to one park will now cost you between $110 and $130, depending upon when you want to go, which is ridiculously expensive, especially when you compare that to when the park's opened, right? Well, let's talk about that and analyze it a little bit and see how much truth there really is in there. Because on the surface, oh yeah, it definitely seems like that's the case, doesn't it? So, let's look back just a little bit here. When you go back and look at 1971, when Magic Kingdom opened, admission to the park only cost $3.50. Okay, let's adjust that for inflation and bring it up to today's dollars. That's about $21. But all that included was walking in the park. It included nothing else. No rides, no entertainment, unless it maybe was somebody entertaining on the street. No otherwise closed shows, no food. It included nothing else other than walking into the park and then looking around and going, oh, look, all there is to do, and I can't do any of it because I didn't pay for it. So if you actually wanted to get on rides at the time, Walt Disney World sold ride ticket books. This is the same that was true at Disneyland at the time. And if you wanted to get that, because that's what you needed was ride tickets to actually get on the rides, well, you could walk in the gate and you could pay $4.75 for a book that would have 7 ride tickets in it. That would, modern day translation, come out to about $30. So a whole day at Disney World and you're only going to ride 7 rides. I don't know about you, but that would be a pretty lousy day for me. I mean, you figure you're in the park for 10, 12 hours and you only get to do 7 things? I mean, that's like going at Christmas time. Ew. So, the other option at the time was to buy an 11-ticket book. This is a little bit better. It was $5.75, or close to $40 today. That would give you one A ticket, which was like riding the train, a B ticket, 2 C tickets, 3 D tickets, and 4 E tickets. Now, the D and the E tickets are the ones that everybody wants to ride. That's things like Pirates and Big Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain and the big rides. And so you got 11 total rides that way for $40. That's better, but there's still a lot there that you're not going to see and not a lot you're going to do. And if you want to do more than that, you had to buy more tickets. Well, those tickets could run anywhere from 40 cents to 90 cents per ticket. Now, a 90-cent e-ticket, translating it to today's dollars, you're looking over $5 each, okay? That adds up pretty quick when you start having to add on more tickets to get all those rides that you wish you could have ridden and you didn't pay for enough tickets at the gate. Also, that was 1971. Well, wouldn't you know it, 1972 the prices went up because Disney realized they were undercharging. In 1973 they went up, in 1974 they went up, and the truth is they've actually gone up pretty much every single year with the rare exception. So 1975, just 4 years later, they were actually up to $6 just to walk in. That's the modern day $36. If you wanted an 8-ticket book at that point, it was $7.25. So now you're paying $45. That's, quite a bit more expensive. Still not bad though. Hey, $45 to go to Magic Kingdom and get to ride 8 rides. If you want a 12 ticket book, it was $8.25, or a little bit over $50 in today's money. So $50 a day at Magic Kingdom, 12 rides. Not too bad. And certainly it's still half the price of what a day would be today, right? So yes, Disney does cost more on a one-day, one-park basis. However, Walt Disney World now has 4 parks. You're only going to go to Walt Disney World for one day in one park? That's kind of sad. So let's make it more equal. Let's say that you go to 4 different parks, one park each day. Well, if you buy a 4-day, one-park ticket, that is now $340 to $380, depending upon when you go. So about $85 a day. You are looking at about a $30 to $35 a day difference in the actual price per day of just walking into Walt Disney World and going on rides. That's a much more equivalent deal. So $35. So let's analyze that. Is that ridiculous? Is it unexpected? Is it out of line? Well, the first thing I want to look at is the crowd issue. And this little thing that we did in high school in economics that, if you're like me, you probably slept through this, because I did. That's called supply and demand. Here's the problem, is that when there is a great demand, well, then the prices go up because there's not as much supply. And if the demand goes down, then so do the prices, because it's trying to get more demand in. So the biggest key to the pricing at Walt Disney World is how much demand is there, and is the pricing so high that it is actually reducing the demand? Well, the obvious answer to that, if you have seen the parks in the last few years, is no, they certainly have not outpriced their demand. The crowds in the parks have been heavier in recent years than they have ever been. In fact, when I used to work there in 2006 to 2011, you could go in January or February, or you could go in September, and the parks would be at least empty feeling. They wouldn't necessarily be empty, but the crowds would be light enough that there would be short lines. A lot of the rides would be walk-ons. You wouldn't have a whole lot of people there. That's not true anymore. There really is almost no time at all like that anymore at the Walt Disney World parks. It's busy all the time. This is actually true at Disneyland as well, from all reports I've seen. Now, it's been 16 years since I've been to Disneyland, so you can't quote me on that for sure. But Walt Disney World, I know, they used to have a slow time, and they absolutely don't anymore. I went last January, which should have been an empty park, and I was amazed at the crowds. It felt like summer. It was nuts. So Disney no longer has this slow point of year. The crowds are huge. They're constantly there, so they obviously are not charging more than what people are willing to pay. And in fact, really, the best way to actually get those crowds down is to charge more. And yeah, they still haven't done that. Additionally, with the hotels, people are saying, well, if they just quit building hotels, less people would come. Well, no, they're still going to come. They're just not going to be staying at Disney property. Disney hotels have actually been running near capacity. That means they do have a few empty rooms here and there, which is part of the rotation that they keep, so that they always have some extra. But they have been filling those rooms up to the levels that they're very pleased with, and realize that they need more rooms because they can sell them. And as they build these new resorts, as they add on the rooms, they're constantly filling them. They're keeping that capacity rate right up there, and it's not going down. Disney Vacation Club rentals are selling like crazy with the timeshares. There's no reason for them to not do it, and there's every reason for them to do it, because people are paying for it. The demand is there. Give us more, and they want it. So it's simple economics. Disney is a business. They are in this thing to make money. They're not here to just make everybody happy. The reason they want to make everybody happy is so they can make more money. That's the bottom line. Dollars. As much as we love to think that Disney is this altruistic, happy-go-lucky, we just want to bless everybody thing, they're not. They're a business, and that's the bottom line. Is the business is to make as much money as possible. How can they do that the best way? And as long as they're getting people coming, they're not going to cut prices. They're not going to cut back on the hotel rooms. They want to drain every little bit of money they can get out of everybody who comes. So, yes, we were taught to make everybody happy, and the reason we wanted everybody happy in the parks was they would spend their money. That's what it comes down to. And so people are still spending the money, and they're still coming. When I worked at Disney, we were told that the average family saved for around 5 to 6 years for a Walt Disney World vacation for the family. So think about that. This is back in 2001. Sorry, 2006. Whew, I'm losing my dates. So it's been about 12 years or so. And 5 to 6 years saving then to be able to go. Today, that has changed a little bit. Now they're saying it's 6.5 years. Just a little bit longer for the average family to save for a vacation to Walt Disney World. That's really not much of a difference. And that has actually always been the case, especially ever since they went to 2 parks with Epcot. People have always had to save to go to Walt Disney World because it's always been expensive. And that's the simple truth. If we come back, in fact, to the dollars that I was talking about earlier, it really isn't that much more expensive. We figured on a 1-day per park basis, it was about $30 to $35 more per person in modern dollars. But that ticket now includes unlimited attractions. You're not having to buy extra ride tickets because you run short. It includes all of the shows. It includes every bit of entertainment that is in there. And there's actually more offered in the parks than there was when it opened. And as the parks have added more things, it's cost more money to operate the parks. And those attractions are not cheap to put in. I mean, goodness, if you've seen the price tag for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I mean, we're talking $1 billion or more. And the numbers I've heard have been a lot more. That's a lot of money. But there's more to do than there was in 1975. And since people aren't limited in how many attractions they can go, well, then you pay a little bit more for it. You're getting more for the money. Additionally, a lot of people don't realize that the more days you pay for, the cheaper it gets per day. If you were to buy a 7-day Walt Disney World ticket, then you're only looking at about $20 a day more than what you would have paid back then. And if you add on the park hopping option, okay, yes, that costs more, but now all of a sudden you can go wherever you want. That, when you think about it, $20 a day for unlimited rides, that's really not any different at all. And not just that, but there are actually packages available where you can spend even less than that per day per person. Disney actually has one package available on their website right now. Limited days, you can't go in the middle of summer. But for a family of 4, it would include 6 nights at a Disney resort, tickets to the parks for 6 days, and lodging for $99 a day. So for less than the 1-day ticket, you can get your hotel, you can get the tickets to the parks, and you can actually get transportation to and from the airport and all around the Walt Disney World Resort, because that's also included. That doesn't include the meals. They do have meal plans you can add on to that as well. But you start thinking about it, $100 a day per person to go to Walt Disney World is not really that bad. Yes, Walt Disney World is more expensive than other theme parks. They're also far more involved and far more detailed than other theme parks. I understand not being able to afford going. When we first moved down to Florida, we were in Florida for over 2 years before we even considered Walt Disney World because it is expensive. For the same price as Walt Disney World, we had annual passes to the Busch Gardens and SeaWorld parks and Universal. All combined, all together, it costs less than the passes at Disney would have cost. And for us, that was more bang for our buck. And that's going to be true. You're not going to pay the same prices to go to Six Flags or to Cedar Fair, but you're also not going to have the same experiences as you would at Disney. And that's something to keep in mind, is Disney is very much an immersive environment, and it's always been expensive. Has it blocked anybody out? Not really. We spent a couple years budgeting, but when we lived in Southern California, we managed to get to Disneyland twice with our kids. And it takes saving. It takes budgeting. It takes managing your finances. Is it more expensive than before? Honestly, when you work on the budgeting and the real world dollars today, and you look at the packages that they can offer, No, it's not more expensive than it used to be. It's expensive. It's always been expensive, but their expense is honestly comparable to what it has always been, and in many ways it can actually be cheaper. So how expensive is it? Well, if you want to look at a week, say 5 days, 7 days, somewhere around there, which is a typical Walt Disney World vacation, you are looking at between $1,000 and $1,500 a person to cover your park tickets, your lodging, and your food. That gives you kind of a basic idea of where to start. That may or may not include, if you're staying off property, you're going to need a rental car and you're going to need parking fees, unless you take Uber or something like that, in which case then you've got to balance it out that way. If you stay on property, you don't need the rental car or Uber. You use Disney transportation. So there is a balancing act there. But you can do it. It's just going to take some work. Again, Disney doesn't have a right, or Disney doesn't have an obligation to make themselves affordable to everybody. And when the crowds are the ridiculous amount that they are now, I honestly wish they wouldn't. I'm going to say something that I hate myself saying this, but it's really true. If we want the crowd levels to go back down to where they were a few years ago, when they weren't crowded all the time, there's really only one way to do that. And that's to raise the prices even more, much more, maybe even twice what they are now. Because that's going to be what's required before it starts chasing people away from the parks. Because their current expense level isn't chasing anybody away. There's more and more people coming all the time. You want lighter crowds? It means more expensive tickets. It's just kind of that way, and I know, I hate that thought myself. I'm saying that through gritted teeth. Ugh. But there's not really any other way to get the crowds lower. I heard somebody propose that, oh, hey, let's just automatically lower the gate capacity and just not let other people in. Not practical at all. When the park, and I'm just throwing a number out here, when we know the capacity at Magic Kingdom is over 75,000, and then you suddenly decide to arbitrarily close it at 50,000 for no reason other than to just not let people in, you are now going to have thousands of people standing outside that gate ticked off because they bought tickets and they bought time and they're there to go to Disney and they can't get in for no real reason other than they just decide they don't want to let them in. Then you got to figure out, how are you going to decide who gets in and who doesn't? I know Disney has a whole tiering thing on who gets in during certain crowd capacity days. That's not going to fly most of the year when it's obvious that the park really isn't at capacity. It's just going to cause an ugly scene. Disney's going to end up with lots of public relations issues and ticked off guests and just a whole host of other issues as well. And if you only limit it to people staying on Disney property, which is kind of the first tier, well, now you have all those people who came in with annual passes or who are in on a budget or whatever, and they've all been closed out as well, and that's certainly not going to go. You can't just arbitrarily say, you know what, we're going to let less people in the parks, and that's how it goes. And again, because Disney is a business, and they're in it to make money, they have no incentive to do that anyways, because it's just bad business all the way around. So, what's it going to take to lower crowds? More expensive tickets. And that's not what people want. They want cheaper tickets. Well, if you go cheaper tickets, then you're going to be having even bigger crowds. And instead of just hitting capacity at Christmas time, which is the busiest time of the year, you're looking at hitting capacity days during summer and other times. And trust me, capacity days, you don't want to be there for them. So we're kind of at this equilibrium here. We either pay the price and experience the crowds, or we lower the price and make it completely unworkable as a vacation, or we make it more expensive and lower the crowds. That's unfortunately where we're at with Disney. So I know I don't have any other solutions to that, but if you want to go to Walt Disney World, it's just going to cost you a pretty penny, and that's the facts of life. And sometimes the facts of life aren't fun. Now, where's Dottie and Tootie and Mrs. Garrett? Anybody know about the facts of life? I don't know. What's your opinions? I love to hear your feedback. Let me know. Please be sure to share it in the comments below. Do you have other options, other solutions? I would love to hear them. Do you have other people who complain and, what do we do about it? Well, don't forget to share the video with them. Hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. Thank you for my patrons for your support. If you want to know about all that kind of stuff, check the description below. There's a ton of links and merchandise and information and fan pages and stuff down below. So check all of that. Thank you so much, and God bless. If you want to know whenever I have a new video out, well, hey, make sure you hit that button right there and subscribe. If you want to see another video right now, well, I've got a great one right here for you. And if you want to be like these wonderful people here and help support me financially on Patreon, well, check out that link right there and it'll take you to it. Thanks so much, and God bless.